The classroom was full of noise. Students from 17 different alien species were talking and laughing as they waited for class to start. Some made clicking sounds, others whistled, and some hummed in musical tones. Professor Velcrin stood at the front of the room. He was a Zarathi, which meant his body was made of crystal-like material that shone with rainbow colors when the light hit it. "Everyone, please be quiet," Professor Velcrin said through his translation device. "Today we are starting something new. We will learn about a species called humans. They just joined the Galactic Council 3 years ago." Many students started to laugh and make jokes. Everyone in the galaxy had heard about humans. They were the newest species to learn how to travel faster than light. Most species thought humans were funny and strange. They were still so primitive compared to everyone else. A student named Zixthar spoke up. He was a Quellan with 4 eyes on stalks. "Are we really studying the apes from Earth? I heard they still hit each other with their fists. How stupid is that?" Professor Velcrin nodded. "That is exactly why we are studying them. Most species stop fighting with their bodies when they learn to build spaceships. Humans did not stop. This makes them very interesting to study." The professor turned on a video screen. It showed old footage from Earth's history, from about 100 years ago. Human soldiers were running across muddy ground while explosions went off all around them. Many of them were getting shot. The students watched but did not seem very interested. They took notes on their electronic pads. "This is from something humans call World War I, the professor explained. "Look at their weapons. They use small explosions to push metal bullets. Very simple. Very basic. Notice how they run straight at the enemy even when many of them are dying." A female student named Liana shook her head. She was a sylphid, a species that looked like she was made of light and air. Her people stopped fighting wars 12,000 years ago. "They just run into the bullets? Do they not think about whether they will survive?" "It does not look like they think about it," another student called out. Several students laughed at this. The professor showed more videos. The next ones were from World War II, which happened about 80 years ago on Earth. The battles were bigger. The weapons were more powerful, but the students still did not seem worried. These were old wars from before humans even understood basic science. "Now look at this one," Professor Velcrin said, showing a new video. "This is from a place called Vietnam. Humans fought in thick jungles. The enemy was hard to find. Watch carefully." The students saw human soldiers moving through dense plants and trees. Their faces were painted with colors to help them hide. They moved quietly and worked together well. They looked more skilled than in the earlier videos. A student named Kale sat up straighter. He was a Dravian, and his species was known for being good at war strategy. They learned. They changed their methods. That is actually a little bit impressive for such a young species. "Yes, very good observation," Professor Velcrin said. "Humans can adapt quickly. They change their fighting styles to match different situations, but this is not what makes them truly special. We will learn about that tomorrow. Tonight, please read chapters 7 through 9 in your books." As the students left the classroom, most of them were still smiling and joking about the humans. To them, war was something ancient. Their own species had stopped fighting thousands of years ago. They did not understand what it meant to be human. War was just something in old history books, not something real. But Kale stopped at the door and looked back at the video screen. It was frozen on an image of a human soldier staring at the camera. The soldier looked very tired, but his eyes were strong and steady. Something about that look made Kale feel uncomfortable, though he could not explain why. There was something in that soldier's eyes that suggested this class might not be as funny as everyone thought. The next day came quickly. Word had spread around the school about the funny humans and their primitive ways of fighting. Many students from other classes asked if they could watch the lectures. Now the classroom was completely full with students sitting everywhere, even on the floor. "Welcome back," Professor Velcrin said. His crystal body seemed to shine brighter than usual. "I see many new faces today. Good. Today we will look at human wars from more recent times." The first video showed human soldiers in a desert. They were moving through buildings in a city. Their weapons looked more advanced now. Their tactics looked smarter. But something else caught the students' attention. "Wait, stop the video," Zixthar said, his 4 eyes focusing on the screen. "Professor, why is that human carrying his wounded friend? Should he not leave the wounded soldier and continue the mission? That would be more logical." Professor Velcrin made a sound like he was thinking. Good question. This shows the first truly strange thing about human fighting. They have a rule they call no one left behind. They will risk many lives to save one soldier. They even risk their lives to bring back dead bodies. The classroom became very quiet as everyone thought about this. Liana spoke softly. That makes no sense. The math does not work. Why would you risk 5 lives to save 1 life? You are correct, Professor Velkrin agreed. It is not logical. But humans do it anyway. They say it is about trust and honor. They say it keeps their soldiers strong and willing to fight. We will study this idea more as we continue. The professor showed more videos. They watched human special forces on secret missions. They watched peacekeeping operations. They watched rapid response teams. As the videos continued, the students stopped laughing. They stopped making jokes. They started to see a pattern, and that pattern made many of them feel uneasy. Look at the pattern, Professor Velkrin pointed out. No matter what technology they have, humans always act the same way. They fight in places that would kill most other species. They keep fighting even when they are badly hurt. They continue fighting even when they probably cannot win. Kyle raised one of his tentacles to ask a question. Professor, in my species' military history, we would retreat and make a new plan if 30% of our soldiers were killed or hurt. What is the human limit? Professor Velkrin showed a chart on the screen. This is difficult to measure. We have records of human units that kept fighting even when 90% of them were dead or wounded. Some groups fought until every single member was dead. A nervous feeling went through the classroom. This was not funny anymore. This was disturbing. A student named Marthek spoke up. He was a Zinthari, a species known for very logical thinking. Surely those were rare cases. Just a few strange examples. I thought that too, Professor Velkrin admitted. But the pattern repeats everywhere. In every human culture, in every time period, in every type of war. Humans even have special words for this behavior. They call it fighting to the last man. They write stories about it. They consider it honorable. The professor showed another video. This one was from Mars, from a war between 2 human groups before aliens made contact with Earth. The students watched, as a small group of human defenders refused to surrender even though they were outnumbered and running out of supplies. The enemy offered to let them live if they gave up. The humans said no. Why? Liana whispered. Why would they not surrender when they cannot possibly survive? That is the question, Professor Velkrin said quietly, that has puzzled alien psychologists since we first studied humans. We believe the answer is in something deep in human psychology, something most species lost long ago or never had. Tomorrow we will examine what humans call their warrior culture and why it never went away, even when they reached the stars. As the class ended, the usual chatter and jokes were gone. Students left in small, quiet groups. They talked in serious voices. The humans were not just primitive or aggressive. They were something else. Something that did not fit with how intelligent species were supposed to develop. Zixthar stopped near the door. His 4 eyes turned back to look at the screen. Professor, one more question. Has any species in the Galactic Council's records ever been as aggressive as humans? Professor Velkrin was quiet for a long moment. There was one species 12,000 years ago, the Vrix. They were the reason we made the Council's strict rules about warfare. They were eliminated because they were too dangerous. And humans are like the Vrix? No, Professor Velkrin said softly. The Vrix wanted to conquer everyone. Humans are different. That is what makes this study so important and so frightening. By the 3rd week, Professor Velkrin's class had changed completely. Nobody was laughing anymore. Nobody made jokes about humans. Several students had dropped the class because the subject matter was too disturbing. The students who stayed were the serious ones. They understood they were learning something important, even if they did not fully understand what it was yet. Today we look at the foundation of human warfare. Professor Velkrin began. His crystal body seemed darker than usual. We are not studying tactics or weapons today. We are studying psychology. We are studying the cultural framework that creates soldiers like the ones we have been watching. The first video was not a battle. It was a ceremony. Rows of young humans stood in matching uniforms. They stood very straight and still while a flag went up a pole and music played. The students watched, confused about what they were seeing. This is called a military graduation, Professor Velkrin explained. These young humans just finished basic training. Look at their faces. What do you see? Pride, Kale said immediately. They are proud to be soldiers. Exactly right. In most civilized species, military service is seen as an unfortunate necessity. It is a duty that must be done, but nobody is happy about it. Humans volunteer for military service. They compete for the honor. Some human families have soldiers in every generation. They pass down military service like a precious family tradition. The professor changed the video. It showed a large field filled with thousands of white markers. Each marker represented a dead soldier. Humans walked between the markers. Some placed flowers. Some stood quietly. Some brought small children with them. This is a human military cemetery, the professor said. Millions of markers, each one for a fallen soldier. Humans maintain these places for hundreds of years. They visit them. They teach their children about the people who died in wars that ended many generations ago. Lyanna's voice was barely louder than a whisper. They remember. They actually remember their dead warriors. Not just remember, Professor Velkrin corrected her. They worship them. They build monuments. They write songs. They create poetry and art about war. Human culture is filled with memories of their wars and warriors. Most species put war in their history files and move on. Humans keep it alive in their minds and hearts. The next videos showed human military traditions from different cultures and different time periods. There were Viking warriors, Spartan fighters, samurai, knights, native warriors, African tribal fighters, and modern special forces. Even though the technology and cultures were very different, certain things stayed the same in all of them. Notice what stays the same, Professor Velkrin pointed out. Codes of honor, warrior training starting when they are young, special respect for fighters, ceremonies and rituals around combat. These things exist in all human cultures throughout all of their history. It is as if warfare is not just something humans do. It is something that is woven into their identity as a species. Marthex, the logical Zenthari, finally spoke. Professor, I have been running computer simulations. If humanity's warrior culture is this strong, and it did not disappear even after they achieved spaceflight, what happens if they face a real existential threat? What would humans be like in a total war? Not these limited conflicts we have been studying. The classroom went completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Professor Velkrin's translation device made a sound like a heavy sigh. That is the question the Galactic Council Security Committee has been debating since first contact with humans. Every war we have studied so far has been between human groups. Humans fighting other humans. Internal conflicts over resources, beliefs, or territory. Limited wars with political goals. He showed a star map of the peaceful sectors of the galaxy. The galaxy has been at peace for 3,000 years. We have forgotten what real war looks like. We have evolved past it. We made laws against it. But humans have not forgotten. They remember every war they ever fought. They teach their children about these wars. They prepare for the next war even during peacetime. Are you saying humans are dangerous to the Council? Zixthar asked, all four of his eyes rigid with worry. No, Professor Velkrin said slowly. I am saying humans might be dangerous to the Council's enemies. If the Council had enemies. Which we do not. Not anymore. The Vricks are gone. The Scourge was destroyed 400 years ago. We live in an age of unprecedented peace. Kale's voice cut through the tension. You keep saying if and might, Professor. But you are showing us these videos for a reason. What are you not telling us? Professor Velkrin dimmed his crystal glow completely. This was a sign of deep worry among his species. 3 months ago, long-range sensors detected strange readings in the outer reaches. The Council sent a research ship to investigate. It never came back. 2 more ships were sent. They also were lost. Last week, the Council authorized a military reconnaissance mission. He pulled up a new video file. The timestamp showed it was only a few days old. This is classified material. The Council Security Committee shared it with me for educational purposes. You cannot discuss this outside this classroom. The video showed a Council warship approaching a dark area of space. Suddenly, the sensors lit up with contact signals. Hundreds of them, thousands. Ships of a design nobody recognized were pouring through what looked like a stable wormhole. What are those? Liana asked. Her voice was shaking. We do not know, Professor Velkrin admitted. The Xenobiology Division is calling them the Swarm. They are aggressive, numerous, and completely alien to our understanding. They destroy everything they encounter. The reconnaissance ship barely escaped. The Council is calling an emergency session. He turned to face the class directly. Tomorrow's lesson will be different. We are going to watch a video that the Council Security Committee has requested all member species to review. It is the reason humanity was specifically invited to address the Council, despite being such a new member. It is a video from humanity's archives. They call it Project Looking Glass. What is it? Marthex asked. Professor Velkrin's translation device made a sound the students had never heard from him before. It sounded like fear. It is what humans call a training video, a simulation of what they predict their military would look like in a full-scale interstellar war. It was created 50 years ago, before they even had faster-than-light travel. It was just a theoretical exercise. The Council Security Committee watched it last week. He paused. His crystal body was refracting light in sharp, anxious patterns. They have asked humanity to make it real. The next day, the lecture hall was packed beyond any reasonable capacity. Word had leaked out despite Professor Velkrin's instructions. Students pressed against the walls, sat in the aisles, and crowded near the doorways. Faculty members stood at the back with grim expressions. Everyone knew something significant was about to happen. Professor Velkrin stood at the front next to a sealed holographic display marked with Galactic Council security symbols. Next to him stood someone unexpected, a human wearing a simple gray uniform. He was an older male with silver hair and a weathered face marked with lines that showed both laughter and hardship. "This is Commander Jack Ryan," Professor Velkrin introduced. He is a human military advisor recently assigned to the Galactic Council. "He will provide context for today's material, Commander." The human nodded. His eyes scanned the crowd of alien students with an expression that was hard to read. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried a weight that made even the most restless students fall silent. "Thank you, Professor. What you are about to see was created by our military strategists as a thought experiment. We asked ourselves a simple question. What would human warfare look like on a galactic scale, with unlimited resources and an existential threat? We tried to be realistic. Perhaps we were too realistic." He activated the display. The hologram expanded to fill the entire lecture hall, surrounding the students in the simulation. It started with a star system under attack. The swarm, or something like them, poured through space. They overwhelmed the defensive positions. The Council's forces fought bravely, but in a way the students recognized from their studies. Calculated, efficient, retreating when the casualty numbers became too high. Within hours, the system fell. Then the simulation changed. The same scenario, but with human forces responding instead. What happened next made several students physically pull back in their seats. Human ships did not retreat when they were damaged. They crashed into enemy vessels on purpose. When ammunition ran low, they used space debris as weapons. When enemy forces boarded their ships, human crews fought room by room, corridor by corridor. They did not surrender even when winning was mathematically impossible. They used weapons the Council had banned 3,000 years ago. Nuclear bombs, kinetic weapons, biological agents, antimatter warheads. But it was not the weapons that disturbed the watching students. It was the humans themselves. The simulation showed human Marines fighting in zero gravity, in poisonous atmospheres, in temperatures that should have killed them instantly. It showed human pilots on suicide runs, deliberately crashing their ships into enemy targets. It showed human engineers staying at their posts as their ships broke apart around them. It showed human commanders making decisions that sacrificed hundreds to save thousands, thousands to save millions. "Pause," Liana called out. Her voice was shaking badly. "That unit there, they are trapped. They are surrounded. Why are they not surrendering?" Commander Ryan's expression did not change. "Because surrendering would let the enemy advance to the next defensive line. Every minute they hold is time for civilians to evacuate. So they hold. Until when? Until they cannot hold anymore." The simulation continued. Human factories converted to war production in days. Civilian populations mobilized for war. Entire planets transformed into fortress worlds. The humans in the simulation did not just fight. They committed everything. Their economies, their societies, their futures. The simulation showed human children learning combat skills in schools. Elderly humans volunteered for dangerous defensive positions. Artists and musicians created propaganda to keep morale high. "This is horrible," Marthex stated. His logical mind was struggling to process what he was seeing. This level of total war would collapse any normal civilization. The economic strain alone would be impossible to sustain. "Humans do not have normal civilizations," Commander Ryan interrupted quietly. "Not by your standards. We have never known a galaxy at peace. We have been fighting for survival since we first existed. We fought predators. We fought the environment. We fought disease. We fought each other. We have had exactly 73 years of relative peace in our entire recorded history. 73 years out of 6,000. We do not know how to be peaceful. Not really. We just know how to prepare for the next war. The simulation accelerated, showing years of conflict compressed into minutes. The humans lost star systems. They lost worlds. They lost billions of lives. But they did not break. They adapted. They learned. They innovated. Weapons became more destructive.
Tactics became more ruthless.
The simulation showed humans developing entirely new technologies in the middle of the war, pushing past ethical boundaries the Council had established thousands of years ago. And slowly, impossibly, they began to win. This is the part that frightened the Council Security Committee most, Professor Velkrin said softly. Watch carefully. The human forces in the simulation were not just defending anymore. They were hunting. They tracked the enemy back to their home systems. They did not accept surrender. They did not negotiate. They pursued total victory, which meant the complete elimination of the threat. Kale stood up suddenly. His tentacles were trembling. This is not a defensive simulation. This is genocide. Commander Ryan turned to face him. For the first time, the human's expression showed something other than calm professionalism. It showed sadness, yes, he said simply. When faced with an existential threat, when it is us or them, when there is no diplomacy possible, no peaceful coexistence, no middle ground, humans do not fight to win. We fight to survive, and survival means ensuring the threat can never return. We learned that lesson over and over throughout our history. We learned it from species that went extinct. We learned it from civilizations that showed mercy and were destroyed for it. We learned it from every war we ever fought. The simulation ended. The lecture hall was utterly silent. The holographic battlefield faded away, leaving the students staring at empty space, trying to process what they had just witnessed. That was created 50 years ago, Sixthar said finally. It was just theoretical? Theoretical capabilities, Commander Ryan confirmed. Based on human psychology, industrial capacity, and strategic thinking. We have never actually fought an interstellar war. We have never mobilized our full population for total war. We have never pushed our technology and tactics to absolute limits. And now? Liana asked. She seemed afraid of the answer. Now the Council has asked us to update the simulation, to make it real, to prepare for the swarm. He paused. We submitted our preliminary plans yesterday. The Council Security Committee is reviewing them now. Professor Velkrin's crystal body pulsed with nervous energy. Commander Ryan has agreed to return tomorrow for our final session. The Council is permitting us to view the human response plan. More importantly, we will see the final video that changed everything. The video that made the Council realize what humanity truly represents. Class is dismissed. As the students filed out in stunned silence, Commander Ryan remained standing at the front. He stared at the space where the holographic battlefield had been. Professor Velkrin approached him. Commander, do you think they are ready for tomorrow's video? The human was quiet for a long moment. No, but neither was the Council Security Committee. Sometimes you need to see the truth, ready or not. Will humans really do what was shown in that simulation? Commander Ryan's weathered face showed that complex expression again. Part sad, part proud, part resigned. Professor, that simulation was conservative. It assumed we would show restraint. It assumed we would follow some rules. But the thing about humans is when we are truly threatened, when our survival is on the line. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Professor Velkrin understood, and the understanding terrified him. The next day, the atmosphere in the lecture hall was unlike anything Professor Velkrin had experienced in his 30 years of teaching. Every seat was filled. Faculty from every department had arrived. The dean was present. Representatives from the Galactic Council itself sat in a reserved section. Their expressions were grave and serious. Even students who had dropped the course weeks ago had returned, drawn by rumors of what would be revealed. Commander Jack Ryan stood at the front again, but this time he was not alone. 5 other humans accompanied him. Each wore different uniforms representing various branches of humanity's military. They stood at attention, silent and still, while the alien students whispered nervously among themselves. Professor Velkrin called for order. Today's session is being broadcast to every Galactic Academy campus and to the council chambers themselves. What you are about to see has been declassified by both the human government and the Council Security Committee. Commander Ryan, please proceed. The human commander stepped forward. If he was nervous about addressing such a massive audience, he did not show it. His voice carried the same calm weight it had the previous day. Thank you. Before we begin, I want you to understand something. Humans did not want this. We have spent the last century trying to become part of the galactic community. We have studied your laws. We have adopted your customs. We have learned your languages. We came to the stars hoping to leave our violent past behind. He paused, letting that statement sink in. But we are also realistic. We know what we are. We know what we are capable of. And we know that sometimes you cannot leave your past behind. Sometimes you need it. He activated the holographic display. What you saw yesterday was a simulation. Today you will see something real. This is footage from 3 days ago. The hologram showed a human military installation on Earth's moon. Thousands of humans moved with purposeful efficiency. They were loading ships, testing weapons, running through combat drills. But it was different from the organized chaos of the simulation. This was real. These were real humans preparing for real war. When the Council shared intelligence about the swarm, we mobilized immediately. Commander Ryan continued. Within 24 hours, 40% of human military forces were deployed to defensive positions throughout Council space. Within 48 hours, we had civilian volunteers numbering in the tens of millions. Within 72 hours, we had converted 12% of our industrial capacity to military production. The video shifted to show massive factories, shipyards stretched for kilometers, training facilities where humans practiced combat in simulated alien environments. The sheer scale of the mobilization was staggering. It was hard to believe it had all happened in just 3 days. This is what frightens you, Commander Ryan said bluntly. Our ability to switch from peace to war so quickly. Our willingness to sacrifice comfort, resources, and lives. Our efficiency at organized violence. Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but nobody disagreed with his assessment. But that is not the video I am here to show you, Commander Ryan said. That is not what changed the Council's perspective on humanity. He looked directly at the Council representatives in attendance. The real video is much simpler. And much more important, the hologram changed again. This time it showed a single small room in what appeared to be a human military vessel. A human soldier sat alone recording a message. She was young, probably in her early 20s by human standards. She had dark skin and kind eyes that held both fear and determination. My name is Lieutenant Nicole Carter, the recorded woman said. I am a pilot in the Human Defense Fleet, currently assigned to the USS Defiance. If you are watching this, it means our ship was destroyed in combat with the swarm, and this emergency beacon was recovered. Liana let out a soft sound of distress. This was not a training video or a simulation. This was a farewell message from someone who expected to die. Lieutenant Carter continued speaking. I want my family to know I love them. I want my friends to know I thought of them at the end. But that is not really why I am recording this. I am recording this because I want the galaxy to understand something about humans in case we do not win. In case the swarm destroys us. She leaned forward. Her expression became more intense. We are not fighting because we are violent. We are not fighting because we enjoy it. We are fighting because we understand something that you have forgotten in your 3,000 years of peace. We understand that civilization is fragile, that safety is temporary, that peace is not a natural state. It is something that must be defended. The lecture hall was absolutely silent now. Even the professors had stopped taking notes. Everyone was transfixed by the young human's words. Every species in the Council has a homeworld where they evolved, where they are safe, Carter said. But humanity? We have Earth, yes. But long before we reached the stars, we learned that nowhere is truly safe. Ice ages, meteor impacts, volcanic eruptions, floods, droughts, diseases. Our own planet tried to kill us over and over. We survived because we learned to fight. Not each other, though we did that too. We learned to fight existence itself. She smiled, and it was a sad, knowing smile. You have been watching videos of human wars, studying our violence, trying to understand what makes us different. But you are looking at it wrong. Human wars are not about conquest or resources or beliefs. Not really. They are practice. Every war we have ever fought has been training for the real war. The war against entropy. The war against extinction. The war against a universe that wants us dead. Commander Ryan spoke up. His voice was rough with emotion. Lieutenant Carter recorded this message 6 hours before the USS Defiance engaged the Swarm's scout fleet. Her ship and 3 others held a critical jump point for 17 hours against overwhelming odds. This allowed civilian transports to escape and Council defense forces to regroup. The holographic Carter continued. So when you wonder why humans fight so hard, why we do not surrender, why we will sacrifice everything to hold a position or save our people, it is because we know what is at stake. It is not just our lives or our honor or our pride. It is survival itself. And survival is the one war we have never lost. She stood up, straightening her uniform with deliberate care. We are going into battle now. I am scared. Anyone who says they are not scared before combat is either lying or insane. But I am also ready, because this is what humanity does. We stand between the darkness and the light. We hold the line, we fight. Not because we are heroes, though some of us are. Not because we are better than other species, because we are not. We fight because someone has to, and we are the ones who remember how. The video ended with Lieutenant Carter saluting the camera. Her face showed that complex human expression that the students had seen before. Fear and courage, sadness and determination, all at once. Commander Ryan let the silence stretch for a long moment before speaking again. The USS Defiance was destroyed, as were the other 3 ships in her task force. All hands were lost, but those civilian transports made it to safety. 4,000 Council citizens representing 7 different species survived because 4 human crews bought them time with their lives. He looked around the lecture hall, making eye contact with as many students as possible. The Council Security Committee watched this video, and several others like it. They asked us why humans make these farewell messages, why we record these final thoughts knowing we might die. And I told them the truth. Because we want to be remembered. Not just as names on a memorial, but as individuals who chose to stand, who chose to fight, who chose to sacrifice. Professor Velkrin's crystal body pulsed with a deep, somber glow. Commander, if I may ask, was this video why the Council approved humanity's response plan? Partially, Ryan admitted. The Council realized that humans do not fight for glory or conquest. We fight for survival, ours and now yours. We are not looking to dominate the galaxy or prove ourselves superior. We are just doing what we have always done, standing between our people and the darkness. One of the Council representatives stood up. She was an elder Zerathi with deep purple crystal skin. Commander Ryan, the Council has reviewed humanity's full mobilization plan. It is extensive and somewhat terrifying. Some members have expressed concern about giving humans this much military authority. That is reasonable, Ryan acknowledged. We are terrifying. We have been watching ourselves in these videos and we understand why you are concerned. We are aggressive, relentless, and when threatened, we are capable of horrible things. Then why should we trust you with the defense of Council space? Commander Ryan gestured to the other humans standing with him. Because we are not going into this alone. Lieutenant Sophie Banks here is liaison to the Quellan Defense Forces. Captain Luis Martinez works with the Dravian Fleet. Major Karen Foster coordinates with the Sylphid Peacekeepers. We are not replacing your militaries. We are integrated with them. We are teaching you what we know and learning from you. He pulled up one final video. It showed human soldiers training alongside alien troops. Human engineers worked with Council scientists. Human strategists collaborated with alien commanders. This is the real final video, Ryan said. Not Lieutenant Carter's farewell, as powerful as that was. This is humans and Council species working together, learning from each other, preparing together. The video showed a mixed unit of humans and aliens running combat drills together. There was something different about it. The aliens moved with more aggression, more confidence than in previous videos, and the humans showed more restraint, more coordination with their non-human teammates. We are teaching you to fight, Ryan said quietly, and you are teaching us to stop. We are learning discipline from the Zenthari, patience from the Zerathi, tactical flexibility from the Dravians. You are learning endurance from us, adaptability, and yes, how to fight without surrender when survival demands it. Kyle stood up. His tentacles were quivering. Commander, if humanity is integrated into Council Defense Forces, if we adopt human tactics and human mindset, what happens after the war? What happens when the swarm is defeated and peace returns? It was the question everyone had been afraid to ask. Commander Ryan was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was a genuine, warm smile that transformed his weathered face. That is the best question anyone has asked in this entire course, he said. And the answer is, I do not know. Humanity has never won a war and then successfully transitioned to lasting peace. We have always found a new enemy, a new conflict, a new reason to fight. It is our greatest weakness. He looked directly at Kale. But maybe, working with species who have maintained peace for 3,000 years, we can finally learn how. Maybe you can teach us what you have forgotten, how to fight when necessary, and we can teach you what we have never learned, how to stop fighting when the danger passes. Professor Velkrin stepped forward. His crystal body seemed to glow with a different quality now, softer and warmer. This concludes our course on human warfare, but I want to say something before we end. When I designed this curriculum, I thought I was teaching you about an unusual species, a violent, aggressive species that needed to be studied and understood and perhaps feared. His crystal form pulsed with clear, warm light. But I was wrong. Humanity is not an anomaly. They are a reminder that peace is not free, that survival requires vigilance, that sometimes violence is not primitive, it is necessary. They are what we all were before we forgot how to fight. And right now, when the swarm threatens everything we have built, they are exactly what we need. He turned to Commander Ryan and his companions. On behalf of the Galactic Academy and the Council, thank you for your service, for your sacrifice, and for remembering what the rest of us forgot. Commander Ryan saluted, and the other human officers did the same. Then slowly the alien students began to stand. They did not have a salute of their own, so they simply stood in silence. They were acknowledging what they had learned over the past weeks. They had come to this course expecting to laugh at primitive human warfare. They left understanding that humans were not primitive at all. They were survivors, fighters, guardians who remembered how to stand against the darkness. And as the swarm advanced through the outer reaches, destroying everything in its path, the galaxy was very, very grateful for that fact. 6 months passed. The war against the swarm had begun in earnest. Every day brought news of new battles, new casualties, new systems under threat. The Galactic News Network broadcast updates constantly, and everyone in the galaxy watched with growing concern. Then came the Battle of the Rigel Gate. The swarm had pushed deep into Council space. This system was the last defensive position before 3 heavily populated core worlds. If the Rigel Gate fell, billions would die. Everyone knew it. The Council knew it. The swarm knew it. And the defenders knew it. The Galactic News Network showed the battle live. Council ships and human vessels stood together in formation. The swarm forces appeared on sensors. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands. The numbers were overwhelming. The battle began. For hours, the mixed forces held. Human ships fought alongside Quellan vessels. Dravian fighters coordinated with human pilots. Xanthari tactical officers worked with human commanders. They had trained together. They had learned from each other. Now they fought together, but the swarm kept coming, wave after wave. The defensive line began to buckle. Ships were destroyed. Casualties mounted. The numbers climbed higher and higher. 30%, 40%, 50%. On the bridge of the flagship, the Council Admiral, a distinguished Zarathi named Velkros, watched the casualty reports with growing horror. By all traditional military doctrine, they should retreat. They should fall back and regroup. The mathematics were clear. Staying meant death. His hand moved toward the retreat order. Then Commander Jack Ryan, who was serving as fleet coordinator for the Joint Defense Forces, spoke. His voice was calm and steady, the same voice he had used in the classroom months ago. No. We hold. Admiral Velkros turned to look at the human. Commander, the casualties are at 60%. By my species' military protocols, we must retreat now. And by human protocols, Ryan said quietly, we hold until we cannot hold anymore. Those are 3 billion civilians behind us, Admiral. They have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. We are their last line of defense. Velkros looked at the tactical display. The numbers were impossible. The casualties were catastrophic. Every logical calculation said they should retreat. Then he looked at the human commander. At the weathered face that showed both sadness and determination, he thought about Lieutenant Nicole Carter's message. About the USS Defiance holding for 17 hours. About humans fighting to the last man. He thought about what Professor Velkrin had taught his students. That peace must be defended. That survival requires sacrifice. that sometimes the logical choice is not the right choice. Admiral Velcross, whose species had not fought a real war in 3,000 years, made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. All ships, he broadcast across the fleet. We hold the line. No retreat. No surrender. We fight for every second. We fight for every meter. We hold. The alien crews, who had trained with humans, who had learned human tactics, who had absorbed human warrior culture, responded with a sound that had never been heard from Council forces before. A roar of defiance. A battle cry they held. At 70% casualties they held. At 80% they held. Ships crashed into enemy vessels when ammunition ran out. Crews fought boarders deck by deck. Engineers kept damaged systems running through sheer willpower. Captains refused to abandon ships that were breaking apart. They fought like humans, like survivors, like warriors who understood that some lines cannot be crossed, some positions cannot be abandoned, some sacrifices must be made. They held the Rigel Gate for 8 days, 8 days of continuous combat, 8 days of impossible odds, 8 days of losses that would have broken any military force in the galaxy's recorded history. But they did not break. On the 8th day, reinforcements arrived. Fresh Council fleets mobilized from the core worlds, human battle groups that had finished their rapid training. Together they hit the swarm forces from behind, catching them between two fronts. The swarm broke. For the first time since the war began, the enemy retreated. The Rigel Gate held. 3 billion civilians were safe. Of the original defensive force, only 12% survived. Ships that limped home were barely held together. Crews were exhausted beyond measure. Medical facilities were overwhelmed with wounded, but they had won. In lecture halls across the galaxy, Professor Velcrin's course on human warfare became mandatory for all military officers. But it was taught differently now. Not as a study of an alien species, but as a remembrance of what all species once knew and needed to learn again. The course materials included new footage now, footage of the Battle of the Rigel Gate, footage of alien crews fighting with human determination, footage of Admiral Velcross giving the order to hold, his crystal body glowing with fierce resolve. And always they showed Lieutenant Nicole Carter's final message, her words about standing between the darkness and the light, her explanation that humans fight not because they are violent, but because they understand what peace costs. Students who had once laughed at human warfare now studied it with reverence. They understood now. War was not entertainment. It was not primitive. It was the price of survival, the cost of civilization, the burden that someone must carry so that others can live in peace. Humans had carried that burden alone for 6,000 years. Now they were teaching the galaxy to share it. In the rebuilt classroom where it had all started, Professor Velcrin stood before a new group of students. On the screen behind him was the final image from Lieutenant Carter's message. Her salute, her expression of fear and courage combined. This course, he began, is about remembering, about understanding that peace is not the absence of the capacity for war. It is the choice not to use that capacity except when necessary. Humans never forgot that truth. They carried it with them to the stars, and when the darkness came, they reminded us all. He looked at the diverse group of students before him, Zarathi, Quellan, Dravian, Sylphid, Zenthari, and now, sitting among them, a few humans too. Young humans who had volunteered to serve in the Council's integrated forces. So let us begin, Professor Velcrin said, not with jokes or mockery, but with the respect this subject deserves. Let us learn what humans have always known, that watching human war videos in class is not funny at all. He paused, his crystal body glowing softly. It is the lesson that saved us all. The students, alien and human alike, settled into their seats, ready to learn, ready to remember, ready to ensure that if the darkness ever came again, the galaxy would be prepared. Because now they understood. Peace was precious, but the ability to defend that peace was priceless, and humanity had given them both.